"You've been helping a nobody?" one of the lawyers sneered. The waitress froze, her hands trembling. Then the door opened and in walked the old man she'd been serving coffee to every morning for months. But this time, he wasn't alone. He had 4 bodyguards behind him, and a secret that would change her life forever. The rain had been falling for 3 days straight, turning the city streets into rivers of reflection. Inside a small, worn-down diner tucked between a pawn shop and a laundromat, Renee Parker wiped down the counter for what felt like the 1,000th time that morning. She was tired. Her apron was stained. Her shoes squeaked. And the smell of burnt coffee clung to her skin like another layer of fabric. But when the bell over the door jingled softly, she smiled because she already knew who it was. The man was old, always wore the same gray coat. His shoes were scuffed, his hat too big, and his smile, gentle but distant. He sat at the same booth by the window. Every morning at 7:15, ordered the same thing: black coffee. No sugar, and he always said the same words before she walked away: "Thank you, Miss Renee. You make mornings worth getting up for." She used to laugh it off, calling him Mr. Thomas, though she never knew if that was his real name. Most people ignored him. Some whispered that he was homeless. Others said he used to be rich. Once upon a time, but Renee didn't care. She'd seen enough people walk in broken and walk out invisible. She refused to let that happen to anyone else. Sometimes, when he came in shivering from the cold, she'd slip him a bowl of soup by mistake. Other times, when she noticed the holes in his gloves, she'd leave a new pair on the counter after her shift. He'd always protest, eyes filled with quiet shame, but she'd wave him off with a smile. "Don't make me take it back, Mr. Thomas." He'd chuckle softly. "You're too kind for this world." Renee? She didn't think much of it. Kindness to her wasn't about being noticed, it was about being human. Weeks passed, then months, but one morning, he didn't come. Renee checked the clock. 7:15. Then 7:30. Then 8 o'clock. He never missed a day. Her chest tightened. Something felt wrong by the end of her shift. She'd convinced herself maybe he was just sick. Still, she made a small cup of coffee and placed it by his usual booth, just in case. For 3 days, that cup sat untouched. On the 4th day, Renee arrived early before sunrise. The diner was empty, quiet except for the hum of the refrigerator. Then, the door opened. But it wasn't Mr. Thomas. 4 men in black suits walked in, polished shoes, earpieces, movements too precise for regular customers. Behind them, a woman entered, sharp suit, silver brooch, and a folder in her hands. Renee's stomach dropped. They looked around the diner like inspectors. Then one of the men stepped forward. "Are you Miss Renee Parker?" She nodded slowly. The woman opened the folder. "We represent Mr. Harrison Thomas." Renee froze. "You mean the old man?" The woman's voice was calm, rehearsed. "Yes. He instructed us to meet you here." Renee blinked. Why would he before she could finish? The bell over the door jingled again. There he was. Mr. Thomas walked in. But this time, he looked different. Gone was the ragged coat and the worn shoes. He wore a tailored navy suit, his silver hair neatly combed, his step strong and steady. Even the air seemed to shift around him. The bodyguard stepped aside as he approached her, and for the first time, the entire diner fell silent. "Good morning, Miss Renee," he said softly. "I'm sorry for the surprise." Renee could barely speak. "Mr. Thomas, what's going on?" He smiled faintly. "You've been helping me for months without ever asking for anything in return. It's time I explained who I really am." The lawyer stepped forward. "Mr. Harrison Thomas is the founder of Thomas & Wells Industrious, Fortune 500 company." Renee's eyes widened. "A company?" The lawyer nodded. "He's one of the wealthiest men in the state. But after his wife's death, he disappeared. No one knew where he went." Renee looked at the man she thought she knew. He smiled sadly. "I needed to see if kindness still existed when money didn't." So I left it all behind. I wanted to know if someone would care. When I had nothing to offer, her throat tightened. You didn't have to test that. He shook his head. Maybe not. But I had to see. And you, he paused, emotion flickering behind his eyes. You reminded me of who I used to be. He turned to his lawyers. Bring it. They handed him an envelope. He placed it gently on the counter. This is for you, Miss Renee. A scholarship fund in your name, covering full tuition for nursing school. I remember you said once you wanted to help people for real someday. Renee's hand flew to her mouth. Mr. Thomas, I can't. He smiled softly. You already did. Tears filled her eyes. Why me? He leaned closer. Because you were kind when the world wasn't watching. The lawyers began discussing signatures, documents, contracts, but Mr. Thomas interrupted. There's one more thing. He turned to the bodyguards. Bring it in. One of them stepped outside and returned carrying a small wooden box. Inside it was a gold nameplate. Parker's Place, established by Harrison Thomas. Renee blinked. What is this? He smiled. A diner. Yours. Fully paid for, fully staffed, opening next month downtown. I wanted a place that feels like what this diner felt like when I met you, warm, real, human. Her knees nearly gave out. You're giving me a restaurant? He nodded. You gave me my faith back. I think that's worth more than money. Tears streamed down her face. The same hands that scrubbed counters and poured coffee every morning now trembled over the gift of a lifetime. She looked at the man she'd once thought was just a lonely old stranger. He looked at the woman who had reminded him that kindness still existed. Neither spoke for a long time. They didn't have to be, because some things like gratitude and grace speak louder than words ever could. As he left, the whole diner stood silent. The rain outside had stopped. Renee followed him to the door. Mr. Thomas, shh, she said softly. Will I see you again? He smiled. You already have. Every morning you choose to care. You'll see me in the people you help. He turned and walked toward the waiting cars. For bodyguards, 2 lawyers. One man with a full heart in behind him. One waitress who'd just learned that small kindnesses can ripple farther than she'd ever dreamed. Sometimes angels wear aprons. Kindness doesn't ask for attention. It changes everything quietly. Months later, Parker's Place opened downtown on the first day. A line wrapped around the block. People said the food was amazing. But what they really came for was the feeling. A warmth that couldn't be cooked or bought, only shared on behind the counter. Renee worked with the same apron, the same smile, same heart. On the wall behind her hung a framed photo of an old man in a gray coat with a coffee cup in his hand. The plaque beneath it read, "In memory of the man who reminded me that kindness never goes." Unnoticed, Renee's story is a reminder that the smallest kindness can awaken something extraordinary, because true generosity doesn't come from wealth, it creates it, and sometimes helping a stranger might just change your destiny. Asterisk comment where you're watching from. And tell us, have you ever helped someone who ended up changing your life? Subscribe for more cinematic stories that celebrate kindness, humility, and humanity's quiet heroes.